Welcome to today's episode of Confessions of a Cleaning Business Owner. And today, Diane and me, Louise, are going to be discussing the perfect cleaning kit. And I don't know about you, Diane, but we're now 14 years in, and my cleaning kit now is drastically different to my cleaning kit 14 years ago. And I've got to say, I've tested most, I wouldn't say products on the market, but most like types of product on the market. And we've ended up with about 7 products.
Yeah, I think we're down to 5 or 6. So, yeah. Whereas I remember when I first started, I was a sucker for the supermarket shelves,
Yeah.
and oh, that one looks good. I'll buy that one. And yeah, I had quite a full boot when I first started.
You say that. I went to Costco and Asda today. So I go to Asda, and I know we say to people, don't buy things from the supermarket, buy it from the wholesalers. But we use cream cleaner. And unfortunately, the supermarkets are way cheaper on cream cleaner. It's a commercial product, but I can't find a cheaper place than Asda happens to be next to Costco where I live anyway. So we rocked up and we bought 40 bottles of cream cleaner. And do you know, every cleaner will identify with this. If you do buy products from the supermarket and you have to buy them in such large quantities, that they go, do you like cleaning? And it's like, yeah, I get through 40 bottles of cream cleaner a week.
Yeah, I think I've been asked, do you run a nursing home or questions like that? And not the obvious one. Like, no, I have a cleaning business. But no, do you have a nursing home? Or they just look at you like she must have a really dirty house.
Yeah, do you know, I answered today. I was like, yeah, I'm doing a house renovation. She went, oh, those are bottles. What do you think I'm doing?
Yeah. To be
Stripping
fair,
wallpaper with it.
until very recently, we were actually doing the same with the cream cleaner because it is, you're right, it's a third of the price of the
Oh, it's not
commercial.
a third. It's not
I
that
think
bad.
it is actually, it is. Yeah, it's still. I think actually it's got a little bit. They've got a bit closer together recently, but certainly when we were buying it, it was about a third of the price. But we just made the decision in the end. You know what? It's easier to get it delivered, and rather than going out and getting it. So yeah, we use the professional stuff again now.
Okay. So for us, again, it's so close. We live so close to the supermarkets. It's one person for an hour, and we have to go to Costco anyway. The reason we go to Costco is you can't beat the price, or we can't beat the price on nitrile gloves.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So we buy our gloves online. So yeah. Again, we
Anyway,
like to save the time rather than the money sometimes in our business. But yeah, Costco are really good for things like that. And cloths as well, they're pretty good for, aren't they?
yes. So cloths are the most important thing in your kit, aren't they? Like I could get rid of nearly all my products, forget the cream cleaner. If I've got a good cloth, that is makes more of a difference. And it's interesting that I started on cream cleaner and we go on to microfiber cloths because cream cleaner is really good as a product because it is slightly abrasive. But microfiber cloths are abrasive too. Did you know this?
Yeah, absolutely. When did you discover microfiber cloths though? Did you know about them before you started, or did you just come across them as part of what you do and go, "Oh, why have I never known about these before?"
So I started, this is confession time. When I first started cleaning, I don't think I quite knew what to use. So I went into probably B&M bargains, quality say, whatever they were called at the time. And I bought, they had a pack of 3, which was purple, blue, and yellow at the time. They don't sell it now, I don't think. And I bought those because that seemed to make the most sense there because it could be used damp or dry. So it was like a multi-use one. They could be used lots of times. And it just seemed to be what everyone was using. So I bought them and they were all right. What I know now is you can't wash them that many times and they're only quite good when they're new. Whereas you buy the slightly, well, they're not even more expensive, I've got to say, because you're buying them at cheaper rates, but you buy the proper commercial ones and actually they're way, way better and last longer.
Yeah. So I
What about you?
started out with the old fashioned sort of white flannelly type cloths that you get in packs of 6 or whatever at the supermarket, but they don't wash at all. And if they do, they like end up so small, they're just completely useless. So I think it's probably not long before I discovered microfiber cloths. And yeah, we buy them in bulk now, and they're like 40 by 40 square. So they're really sort of a substantial cloth. And yeah, they wash and wash and wash. They're brilliant.
So you know those white flannel ones? When
Mm.
you do the carpet cleaning courses, they're the ones that they advise you to get. I
Ah,
can't remember
okay.
why, but they're the ones. So of course we bought them in bulk, and by bulk you buy like 50 in a pack, and obviously we bought like 5 packs of them, so 200. And then we pretty much stopped carpet cleaning, and you can't use them in the domestic business. There's just not a lot of use for them. There's better products all around. So my house is full of those. They're used for dog paws and everything. So all my coat cleaning at home is done with those because I've got to use them, and there's just an endless supply.
And isn't that true though? Of when we first start our businesses, it's often what we have under the kitchen sink is what we take out for our first cleans. That's what we're used to using. That's what we've been sold by the adverts, that it will make the job easier. And that tends to be what we end up starting off with. And I suppose what you realise when you start to scale is, first of all, that's not economically viable, really expensive. Also, when you have your first coughing fit, after spraying a product in a bathroom, you might start to think about, what's this doing to me using this day in day out? And mine was definitely a shower cubicle spraying. It might have even been Mr. Muscle or something awful like that. Sorry, Mr. Muscle, but it really choked me up, and I think it just made me start to realise, actually this isn't very good for me to be using.
Do you know the mistake I made? So Zoflora.
Yep.
I'm not going to be mean about Zoflora here because I actually quite liked it. So one of the things that we often talk about is that actually if you buy dilutable products, it gets a lot cheaper. So if you buy them in concentrate and then you dilute them, it's a lot cheaper. Well, one of the things I clocked onto quite early is Zoflora. You buy it and it's £1 a bottle, and Fabulosa is the same, and you buy the concentrate and you dilute it. And I was like, yeah, look at me, I'm using my concentrates. Yeah, what I didn't realise is how highly perfumed and scented that was and what that was doing to me. And there's a reason that anyone with pets says don't use it. And yeah, I thought I was doing the right thing. And then I went, this isn't working so well for me.
But they smell so good. But the trouble is, as cleaners, we use them day in, day out, and they're not meant to be breathed in, day out, are they, unfortunately? So what was in your original kit then when you first started?
Oh, Diane, you're asking me. I can barely remember what I did last week. So I probably had a multi-use product, maybe Zoflora. No, it wasn't. It was Flash, lemon scented Flash. I was a big lemon scented
I was
Flash
a big fan of Flash too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that more popular then than it is now?
I think maybe the perfumed ones like Zoflora and even the Method products. I think they've taken over. Flash is just a really traditional. I mean, it's really good, but it's really expensive.
So back then you could have the 1 litre bottle of concentrate Flash for £1, right? Good luck with buying that now. And so that was my multi-purpose cleaner. It was a really good multi-purpose cleaner. But then the problem with Flash, and the reason I phased it out, and it was really good because you could also use it on the floor. So we'd take it along concentrated as well. So you could use it on the floor. And if you ran out, well, you've already got the concentrate, so you could fill it up. But I had to get rid of it. And I've told this story before, but I had to get rid of it because when I started getting staff, right, it all went horribly wrong. The mop buckets, so my lemon scented Flash, and you'll know this well, Diane, it's 2 capfuls to 5 litres, okay? But apparently, none of my staff over the years can measure out 2 capfuls or 5 litres. Apparently, that is mathematically impossible. So then we started to use, because they couldn't, we put a mark around the bucket where 5 litres was, despite it already being on there, because we use the by litre buckets that show you how much is in there. So we put a black Sharpie pen mark around it. So eventually got the right amount of water, but apparently still couldn't use 2 capfuls. It was kind of pour until they felt like it, or maybe not. So then they came out a couple of years later with do you remember this, where you squeeze and it automatically stops? Okay, so it was squeeze until it stops. So we did that, and then they lost the ability to measure out 5 litres. So we never got the right concentration. But the problem with that is then you couldn't make up your spray bottles. So the squeeze until stop, we then also needed, and we'd have to buy this from Costco as well, you'd need your big 5 litre concentrate bottle to make your spray bottles, at which point I'm thinking, this isn't working so well. Let's start looking at some other options.
Yeah,
What was your evolution then? Did you start with Flash?
I think it evolved quite quickly. I think for me, it was the expense of it all. It was, I think I got to a team of 5 relatively quickly, like within a year. And so me and a team of 5 using Flash and similar type products was just like, I am out shopping for cleaning products every week. It really started to add up. And I think I was very fortunate that I met somebody at a networking meeting who had a business which is now was just around the corner from where my office is now, and they made plant-based concentrated cleaning products, and they were from, oh gosh, this is a long time ago now. I think they were originally from Denmark, but he was the only person who could provide them in the UK at the time, and they were brilliant. They were really good. So quite early on, like in the first year, I just managed to come across somebody who had a solution, and because they were so local, I could literally go and pick them up, and I took the empty bottles back. So 5 litres, I would just take my empty 5 litre bottles back to him, and he'd recycle them and reuse them and pick up. That was brilliant for about 3 years, until he then sold to a bigger supplier, who then decided they wouldn't stock his range anymore. It's very odd. So basically, they just pretty much bought his client base.
Fair enough. Do you know, I'm just remembering how we moved on to more professional products. So we had an office, and one day someone came to the office and went, I'm a rep for Diversey and I'm moving jobs to somewhere else. Can I give you all my old products? And we went, yeah, of course you can. My gosh, he basically filled up his entire car. He gave us the entire lot. I've still got oven cleaner now from probably 10 years ago because we had so much. And so he gave me the entire Diversey range, and he gave me all the bottles we need. And we probably only had 10 staff then, but all the marked up bottles. I was like, this is amazing. And then over time, the problem with when you have to meet KOSH and things like that, you need to have your bottles marked up correctly. So we updated it, and we had all the laser printed bottles because they just work so much better than stickers and things. So we had all the laser printed bottles for the concentrate that we had as we diluted it into it. And so gradually we added more and more bottles, and then it got to the point where we considered using another supplier. The cost of replacing all the bottles was running into the hundreds, and we were like, we can just buy like spray bits because they break all the time. So we could buy the replacement spray bits, but the bottles were costing us £1 a bottle. Yeah. And because we don't just have 20 of each bottle, you also need a backup 20 and a further backup. So we've got 60 of every single product we use. And as I say, we're using 6-7 products. That's a lot of money, £1 a laser printed bottle. And we were just like, it's too expensive to swap. So we've asked the suppliers, if you will supply the laser printed bottles, we'll swap. But until you do, I'm stuck with Diversey. Saying that, I do think Diversey is excellent. So, it's a great thing to be stuck with.
Because we eventually switched to, I think we switched to Evans at first, but then we switched to Jangro, and we've been with Jangro a long time, their products. But they've changed them over the years. They'll go, we discontinued that one. I'm like, but we've got 60 bottles. They'll supply, they'll go, oh, don't worry, we'll give you some labels, but it's just not quite the same. But we've had to just kind of go with it because we've kind of gone, well, we can't change the product. It's so frustrating that, yeah, we've got all these bottles that are all, like you say, laser printed, ready to use, they're perfect. And yeah, we have to compromise by using labels because they've changed the product, we accept that they might change the formulation, but that sometimes they've discontinued and done a new product. But overall, we're happy with Jangro, but we wouldn't switch. We can't switch now. We've got too much invested in bottles and things.
And I remember this when we've got a wholesaler near us. It's about 2 miles away. And I remember before we had all the Diversey products, I used to go there and they would have a different degreaser every time. And to be fair, the degreasers were very, very good. And when we started having to do safety data sheets and things like that, I was like, well, can we get some labels, stickers for the bottles? And they were like, oh, you'll have to contact the manufacturer. So we contact the manufacturer. No one's ever asked us for stickers for the bottles. And we're like, well, you wholesale sell degreaser and no one's ever asked you for a sticker. And they did eventually give us stickers, but they weren't quite right. They didn't fit the bottles quite right and it wasn't quite working. And I know some people are more successful with this, but until we had until we moved to Diversey, and obviously Jangro will be very, very similar, until you have a really good supplier, I just felt like we were bodge jobbing everything.
Yeah, and what is really good about using the commercial suppliers, and I think we probably talked about this previously, is Jangro will supply me with the safety data sheets and the KOSH risk assessments for every single product that they sell us and that we use. So we're already ahead on the health and safety. All we have to do is review and make sure we understand what we're being given, but at least it's all been done in advance. So we really like them. So what's actually in your cleaning kit now? What are those 7 products?
Okay, this is my mind trying to remember. So we have a glass and multi-surface cleaner. So it's great that it does glass as well, so it doesn't smear, because my staff like to spray multi-surface cleaner all over the place. We have a degreaser. We don't have any limescale remover because we don't have any limescale where we are, but we are likely to have mold. We do not put a mold spray in our kit. So as standard, we will never carry mold spray. If a customer wants mold spray, either they apply it themselves or they can pay us extra and we'll use mold spray in their shower. And we're not talking mold problems. We are just talking standard shower cleans. We will not use it. What else? Cream cleaner, floor sprays. So we use floor sprays, no longer mop and buckets, and we'll come on to floor cleaning in a second. We have a bathroom one, which is probably similar to yours. Ours is a 4-in-1. It is a descaler, deodorizer, disinfectant, and something else beginning with D. Right? It cleans bathrooms, it cleans the glass, it does everything. It's wonderful. What else, Diane? What else have I got in the kit? I don't know. Floor spray.
Your floor spray. You've got your degreaser and your bathroom cleaner.
Yeah, kitchen cleaner, which is my multi-surface and glass. I don't know if there's anything more than that. Cream cleaner, which is my 5th one. So that's 5 products. And because we work in teams, we have multiple spray bottles of each of those. I think that might be about it.
That's probably very similar to ours then, because we don't have a kitchen cleaner. We actually use a washing up liquid. So it's called green detergent from Jangro. It's the equivalent of washing up liquid. So we use that in kitchen.
Oh, I've remembered one more. Toilet cleaner.
Toilet cleaner. There you go. Yeah. So we have that for the kitchens, and we have a washroom cleaner which has the descaler within it, and really good. Glass and stainless steel cleaner, so it's just a glass cleaner. A cream cleaner, and then a floor cleaner. We don't use toilet cleaner anymore. If it needs any product, it gets a spray of the bathroom cleaner. But we don't use toilet cleaner because it just felt like it was just a waste, unless it was going to be left to dwell long enough to actually have any effect. And it felt like the team were drinking it at one point. We would go through so much.
I remember our team, I was getting through over 30 bottles a week. And when I was throwing away 30 bottles, that could be nearly 2 bin bags.
Can you either? It's not like the spray bottles that you're constantly refilling. Felt like a lot of waste, and we just stopped using it.
So probably similar to you. So what we use is our bathroom product, but it's designed to go in a toilet cleaner bottle, and you could buy the special refillable toilet cleaner bottle. So we now have one, and at the top unscrews so we can refill it. And it's the same product. So if you spray on the toilet and it goes into the bowl, it doesn't matter. You can mix them all day long because it's the same product.
That's a good idea, yeah.
But they liked it because you cannot spray a spray bottle upside down. So they like having it and squirting around. And because it is, they still drink it. Well, they don't literally drink this. If you're listening to the podcast, do not drink toilet cleaner. They still get through a lot of the product, right?
The business owner, it just feels that way when we're looking at how much we're going through.
But they're literally tipping it down the toilet. And have we done a podcast? We've definitely done a lot of masterminds and training on this and on toilet cleaner and how to use it properly. It is not how they show you on the adverts, because to cover a toilet in toilet cleaner, I tested this. It's half a bottle of, what was I using? Harpic. Half a bottle to cover every surface. So it's not going to cover every surface. So just put down enough to cover it and use the dreaded toilet brush. Oh, that's another one. I will carry toilet brushes. We have toilet brushes.
Toilet brushes, yeah.
And we thought long and hard about toilet brushes. And it's been a debate in the DCBN and everywhere else. Should you carry a toilet brush? And the problem is, how do you even carry it? Because, what do you do? Because they're disgusting. So we got, what do we use? They're like, I know what they are. They're like Tupperware pots, right? With clip-on lids that hold pasta. So, long, thin.
Oh, yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Long and thin, but they clip on so they're tight. So that if they do dribble, right, it's contained within that so they cannot leak. And also in our boxes, because we carry everything in customized plastic boxes as well. Should anything leak, if this did leak, it would only go into our plastic box. And they don't leak because they're kept upright as well. They're in specialist sections to keep them upright.
So we use washing up brushes.
How do you keep them clean?
So, well, you don't reuse them. So they do get reused, but they don't get reused in the same cleaning session. So if you use it, they carry loads and loads of just clean washing up brushes, and they use it for the toilet, and then they put it in with the dirty cloths, and they go through the washing machine.
I know they do, because some of our brushes do. So this is really disgusting. because it always should be disgusting. We have a dedicated dishwasher.
I remember you saying this before. That's grim. But you know, it's grim, but it's actually sensible. It cleans them. Just like, I mean, they go through the washing machine. So what's the difference? You know, and actually, to be fair, it's not like, you know, we're scooping up poo and like putting it into a bag.
You
You
kind
do
of are.
actually, well, you know, you do kind of flush the toilet after you know, with the brush in there to clean it off. It's not like, you know, it's not like a toilet brush in a client's home that's been sat there soaking in toilet juice for a couple of weeks, is it? So that's way worse.
Oh, and do you know what? This debate will go on and on. I bet there'll be people listening to this podcast going, I totally disagree with you. It should be disposable things only. And
Yeah, we did use, you know, those disposable toilet brushes that you just had the handle and then a little like a cloth thing.
yeah,
We used those for a little while, but again, when you get to scale, they just get more and more expensive and wasteful as well. It just felt like we were throwing things away all the time. So yeah, we switched, and washing up brushes, we buy them in mass bulk, and we put them through the washing machine.
I quite like that idea because we used to put toothbrushes through the washing
Yeah,
machine.
well, we use toothbrushes as well. So yeah, toothbrushes around plug holes and getting into the nooks and crannies in the shower. Yeah, they go in the wash with the cloths.
And a lot of people mention, now we don't supply these, but you know, toothbrushes, they're only so good when it gets into the real nitty bits in a shower. You probably need those tiddly little bottle brushes.
Yeah.
But we don't supply them or do them. If we can't do it, it's basically right. You either do it yourself or you book us in for a deep clean, because that is not a standard clean, and then I will supply them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think that our standard kit is designed to do a standard clean. So there's no bleach in there, there's no mold spray in there, there's no furniture polish in there, there's no stainless steel, you know, for baby oil that people recommend, but there's a stainless steel shine that you can use instead. There's none of that in our standard kit. It's literally, this is designed for maintenance cleaning. If it needs more than what's in your kit, you request it for the next clean, and or the client might have to pay extra. Usually they don't if it's something small, but generally we just don't have it in the kit because there's too much risk of it being used in the wrong place usually.
And talking of furniture polish, because everybody, a lot of cleaners like to use furniture polish. Furniture polish is one of the biggest no-nos, and it's one of the biggest debates I have with customers. They go, I always explain to them, we use unscented chemicals where possible, and I'll explain why and how it's not good for our cleaners. And after 10 years, there's like a massively increased risk of lung disease and things like that. So I explain, look, it's not just for you guys. And they go, what are you going to use to polish my table? And I'm like, when you say polish, what do you mean? We'll remove the dust. And I sort of say, what polish do you use? Do you use a silicone-based polish? Oh, I use a beeswax polish. I go, interesting. So I'm actually a beekeeper. Beeswax doesn't spray under any plan in the world. It's horrible to even try and cut. So that beeswax is, I promise you, mixed with a load of terps and other things, because beeswax does not go into an aerosol. So you are probably using a silicone-based polish, or it's mixed with so many chemicals that there's only a tiny bit of beeswax in there. So no, we are not going to use furniture polish. And the other reason is if it has got silicone, it's going to cover everything in a layer of silicone, which is like a layer of plastic. You will never get it off. And if it builds up, you're going to get a fisheye effect on there. It is really bad for your wood. If you want it done properly, every 6 months, you can buff in some real beeswax polish, which is actually hard. And you are going to have to buff it by fingertips, or we'll do it for you and we'll charge you for that. But that is a big job. But I'm not touching furniture polish.
No, we're completely the same. We dust with usually a damp microfiber cloth, but no chemical. And yeah, that's all we will do. And yeah, polish, especially the sprays, you know, there's lots of brands out there, but you know, they used to be so popular, but they only, like you say, it was just silicone that was making things look shiny, but it just builds up and builds up and builds up. And then all of a sudden you're using a cloth on it and it won't move, will it? And it's just like, yeah, there's too much build up. Also, I was always convinced that the silicone just basically attracts dust.
I stopped studying at the point where I realized it was really bad. Do you know what we do though? Because some customers insist that we use some of it. And so I won't use it on any of my cloths because it wrecks my cloth. So they supply it. So I'll spray it up the banister for them.
Yeah.
I just go, there you go, because you don't really care about this. You just want the scent. So have it all the way up the banister.
yeah, and at least nobody's going to slip on it, I suppose.
It's the
Yeah,
stuff.
no, we don't have polish in our standard kit, and I think that's the key thing here. Is this is your standard kit, and I think that the trick that perhaps some of us go into is thinking we have to have a product for every occasion in our car, and I just generally don't believe that's true. If you're doing lots of end of tenancy cleans, fine, you might need different products. If you're doing industrial cleans, you're going to need different products. If you're doing maintenance, domestic cleaning, you only need your standard products with you. Don't fill your car with stuff
Can't,
just in case.
can't 99% of the cleaning be done with fairy liquid? Or
Yeah.
even just a good microfiber cloth? And I've got to say, I don't even use any chemicals on bedrooms, lounges, things like that. There's no chemicals unless I do need a chemical specifically, like a glass cleaner or something. But even that, you can do with no chemicals. And
Every
customers,
room, apart from bathrooms and kitchens, it's pretty much a damp microfiber cloth. And then perhaps if you're doing windows, mirrors, and things like that, then yeah, you're going to need some glass cleaner. But yeah, everything can be done with just a damp microfiber cloth. That's what they're designed for, aren't they?
so you mentioned damp microfiber. I've got to say, I wouldn't always use it damp. So I would use it dry in 80% of cases. Now, I always carry one damp and one dry. I would do it dry because most of what I'm clearing up is just dust.
Yeah.
I do dry, and then if I needed like a coffee ring or something, I'd be using my damp one. But the
Yeah.
vast bulk of what I'm doing, I wouldn't be using a damp one.
Yeah,
Would you?
no, yeah, no, we do tend to, and if you're cleaning your fingerprints and things like that, but you've still got to be careful. So if you've got like a limestone fireplace, you don't want to go near that with a damp cloth because you don't want to get any water on it. So yeah, you do have to be careful, and it is damp. It's not a wet cloth. There's a difference. Yeah.
So
What else do you carry then? So come on, I know you're a big fan of Sebo vacuum cleaners. All your team have Sebos?
Yeah, I'm going to cover two things before we go out onto the vacuums, right? So first of all, extendable dusters. So we carry a relatively small extendable duster, which can get most rooms in most modern houses. But around us, we have a lot of Victorian houses, and it's not unreasonable that you would need effectively a double broom pole to reach those, which we have some really good long dusters, but we wouldn't carry that in a standard kit. So we have a sort of medium-sized extendable one, but anything more than that, you're going to need a deep clean. And
we have a microfiber duster, which is a stick duster, and it's kind of one of those things with all the little bobbles, and they go through the washing machine, so they're great. So we use those for general, like, skirting boards, and if you can reach the coving and that sort of thing. But we do have extendable cobweb brushes for your beams, and if it's a bit higher. But even that's not huge, and that's all we have those in our standard kit. But yeah, anything more than that, and we actually can't do it. We're geared up for domestic cleaning, not for something that requires us to have 3 poles worth of cobweb brushes.
We have one really massive one, but you'd have to literally ask me to use it from the office. Okay, so we'll cover onto floor bits in a second then. So Sebo. So it's interesting. When I started, like everyone, I started with a Henry because why wouldn't you start with a Henry? And there is a little part of my heart that still loves the Henry. And honestly, I have a Henry at home. And I genuinely don't think you can beat Henry on hard floors. So where I've got my dogs and my wooden floors and my hard floors, Henry wins all day long. I love that you haven't got the weight of pushing an upright vacuum. You can pull it behind you, so it's not putting the strain on your body. I just think it's suction. It doesn't break. I love Henrys, but we don't use them at work. And the reason for that is people are paying for a premium service. And we used to use Henrys before I'd say we were really premium. And it was fine until the summer. And a lot of places around us have brand new thick pile carpet, although that's going out of trend quite at the moment to put in really thick pile carpet. But anyway, really thick pile carpet. And Henry is an absolute killer on thick pile carpet. And especially in the summer, it's really, really hard. And it was in the summer, probably again 10 years ago, that we swapped. And we did a lot of research on this because upright vacuums are better for carpets because they have ideally that beta bar, but like those brushes to get into the pile. They're less work. They virtually pull you along. It's really good. I love upright vacuums, but they are harder to use. And so what we realised is, one, we can't take them in and out of our cars. It's just not practical. No. And two, they're hard work for the staff, and it's bad enough that we risk their backs doing this job, a manual job anyway. So it had to be a canister. And what we realized is we wanted the power of those motor driven brushes. We didn't want air driven brushes because I love the Mealy and I love the air driven brush on the Henry, but they do not work as well as a power driven brush like on an upright. So we went, right, we want an upright head with a canister vacuum. And there were two options, the Henry one and the Sebo one. So the D4 by the Sebo, and Henry at the time had come out with one. And Henry's one had been tested and it was unreliable. It just wasn't working well. It kept breaking. And this was by reviews from all around, whereas the Sebo one was really reliable. And we went, fine, we can get premium quality work like the upright without risking the backs of my staff. But the compromise is it's going to cost us a lot of money to do this. So we swapped. Okay. And one summer we bought a load of these, and I don't know how much they are, about probably £500 a vacuum. They're not cheap. And my staff hated it. We bought it in. We said, right, we'll test it for 1 week. We brought them in. They hated it because they couldn't put it together. There's loads of different attachments. The attachments are all kept in the back of the vacuum, whereas Henry, you just kept them in a bag, probably downstairs or wherever you were. But everything in the Sebo has been well thought out, very similar to the Mealy. It's all in the back. It's really good. They had to learn how to do it. So after a week, they were like, we hate them. They take us a long time. They're heavy. We were like, they're the same weight as the Henry. We've tested it. So, and we let them go back to the Henry. And it was in the middle of summer. They did the Henry for 1 day and went, oh, no, we never want to go back. Even though the Sebo was harder to learn, once they'd learnt it, it was the best vacuum in the world. And all my staff love it. But there are more attachments, which gives you more flexibility. But, you've just got to learn how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. But they are more than twice the price.
Yeah, what Henry's at the moment? 150, 120. I don't know. I was in Costco today. I'm sure they're about 120, 150.
Whether they're on offer, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's probably VAT on top of that. Yeah, so you buy the top of the range. I mean, Mealy's are good, but you're still only talking 250. Ours cost, I think, 400 a vacuum. And then the problem is the more complex your vacuum gets. I feel like I don't know if I'm pitching this for Sebo or not. The more complex your vacuum gets, and ours are complex because we've now got wires running down the inside of pipes. So if that wire becomes detached from the inside of a metal pipe, then anything can get in there and block it, and we can't stick anything up that pipe to unblock it. So we've now had to invest in endoscopes that attach to our computers and ways of unpicking it because it was costing us so much to get other people to fix it. So we now run what I call the vacuum graveyard, and we basically harvest parts. We have to fix it all in-house because we regularly have vacuums that are out of order, and we're lucky that we've got an engineer on site constantly because the maintenance of the more complex vacuum it's quite a lot.
It's interesting because when I started my business, Dysons were all the rage. The upright Dysons were all the rage. Now it's Shark, I think, isn't it? But at the time, Dyson were the upright vacuum cleaner that everybody wanted, and super expensive, really plasticky, and they tended to break really easily. So having used them in and very heavy, yeah. And I'd used them in a few clients' houses a few years before I started my business properly, and I was just like, they're not going to be. I'm not going to be able to lug these in and out of my car. They're just not going to work. First of all, they're too heavy. Second of all, the bits on them just keep breaking off in general use, never mind in the boot of a car. So I needed, obviously, so I went for the Henrys, and we actually, to start with, we use the actual commercial pneumatics. So they're bigger than a Henry. They look like a Henry, but they're bigger.
Yeah.
And they're certainly bigger than the Henry now because the Henry's shrunk, but they were probably a third of the size bigger than an ordinary Henry at the time. But why I loved them was because, first of all, their motors were stronger and lasted longer, but also they had really long cords on them. So you could, you didn't have to do quite so much unplugging. From a health and safety perspective, I actually probably prefer my team now to unplug. We then switched to the more domestic Henrys because we had feedback from the team that actually these big ones felt big and clunky, especially in the back of a Corsa. They were a little bit on the big side. And now, of course, the Henrys are 160s, so Henry shrunk them down themselves. Now we use. And at first, when they first came out, the team used to fight over them, even though I think the weight difference was so minimal, but they liked the small ones. So we've stuck with Henrys. We like them.
So the other thing, do you remember a few years ago, a law came out? It was an EU directive that we had these wonderful, I think they were 1,400 watt vacuums, and we've still got a couple in use. And then the law came out that you couldn't sell a vacuum at more than, I think it's 800 watts. I know ours are 700 watts. And every vacuum had to obviously redesign their vacuums. Henry Sieber, the whole lot had to do it. And we got promised, they're just as powerful. They're just as powerful. And we're like, no, they are not. And I go back to some of my old, like even a Henry, if you compare a new Henry and an old Henry, they do not have the suction power now.
No, and those special ones that we used to use, they had a turbo. You could literally turn the switch and make them more powerful. Yeah.
Now, but the other thing about the commercial vacuums, which is better, if you're going to use your vacuums for a long, long, long time, and if you're using them for 5 hours a day, they get a lot more wear and tear. So I'm lucky if I get 2 years out of a vacuum. But the difference with the commercial vacuums is that they have things called motor brushes. It's just the way the motor works. It's nothing you need to know about. But the commercial ones, you can replace the motor brushes because that's what goes on them. Whereas the domestic ones, it's all sold as one motor, so that you can buy the motor, but it's the same price as the vacuum, so you're going to buy a new vacuum. Whereas the commercial ones, you can just replace the brushes, so it's a lot cheaper to replace parts on the commercial ones.
Yeah, I know that. I think a Henry motor now is about £75, so there's always that thing of get a new one. Yeah, it's £120 for a new one, £75 plus labour to replace it. We're quite lucky because the handyman in our letting agency, when the vacuum cleaner graveyard builds up a little bit, he comes in and fixes the switches and sorts them out for us. And usually, 90% of them get back into service. So yeah, but if you don't have that, they can be really expensive to fix.
And the plugs. Obviously, all my staff pull on the plugs, and you get the little bit just by the plug that comes apart, and you can see the wires inside. And it's like, I'm not using that. It's dangerous. You broke it. Like,
or with the Henrys, they split the hoses. So we're like, please don't wrap the hose around the Henry. Don't do that. Henry doesn't like it. It makes him unhappy. The hose comes off the Henry and gets folded up and put in a bag of tools, just like you said. Because if they wrap it around the Henry, then they split the hoses. Yeah, but they get shorter and shorter until they get thrown away.
oh, I've got to say, I wrap it round, but mainly because I use them at home and it's easier to wrap it up like that. And I keep the top part of the pipe, right? The little bend on the pipe.
You tuck it in.
Stick it through. Love it, Diane. Love it.
No, stop doing it. Henry doesn't like it.
Well, but to be fair, your home use is nothing like domestic or commercial in and out of the car constantly. It's just nothing like it. So you're going to get away with it. I'm going to get away with it for 10 years at home. You're not going to get away with it for 8 months at work.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
So
what else? Let's talk mops, because I know we differ on mops as well, don't we?
So we use a flathead mop with a microfiber head. I love them. I find this really, really interesting. So I'm going to talk about flathead mops for a second. The research shows that flathead mops are far more time efficient because they've got a much bigger surface area. So they've worked out that you're covering it about 5 times as fast because the surface area compared to like your string mop or your Valida mops, it's just so much bigger. And 2, because you're using a microfiber one, it's actually almost scrubbing the floor, whereas your string mops, your traditional mops, just are not getting that level of scrub on there. But I have heard some terrible reviews as to why they're useless, and the spray and mops where the spray's in the handle. And my staff were finding they weren't great, and when we first brought them in, the customer reviews were then not great, and I couldn't work out what was going wrong. What nobody tells you, the single biggest secret on using these, they're not designed for you to spray a mop. You have to make the mop head wet to begin with. So unless you're using a wet mop head, they do not work well. They might soak up a spill at best, and even then it's not great. You have to get the mop head wet. And if you do get it dirty, you're then going to have to take it off and wring it out in the sink and use it again or put a new one on. And it wasn't until I realised very quickly, within a week or 2, you have to have wet mop heads. And now they're just the best. The results are amazing. The speed is amazing. They can use on any surface. They have separate spray bottles. It's just really easy. What about you?
Then I like flat mops personally because I like them because I can get under things. And actually, we use a flat mop at home, and we've got a lot of wooden floors, kitchen's wooden floor, and yeah. So in fact, we've no carpets at all. So I like a flat mop. But we started off with the Excel. We use Excel Revolution, and they're like string mops, but they're looped, so they're not all the ones that are flicking all over the place. So they're pretty solid mop heads, and they screw off, so they just get chucked in the wash. They go in the washing machine with the cloths, and we've just stuck with them. And it's probably the similar reason why we won't change our product supplier unless somebody provides the bottles. Is we're too far down the line now to change. But I like them. They work really well. They're absolutely they work really well, and they launder and they wash, and so they're practical from that point of view. And of course, we're not having to touch them because we've got a bucket. Although having said that, with my flat mop at home, I have a bucket that I can wring my flat mop out in. So there is an option to have a combination of the two, isn't there?
So again, flat mops, we can use different mop heads upstairs, downstairs, wherever we want. But the other reason I really like flat mops is because a lot of our customers, if you think of the type of houses we have in my area, they are very expensive, but not massive. It's almost like London. It is an expensive area, but you're talking, not far off 500,000 to 1 million for a 3-bedroom semi, right? So it's not cheap around here. So they buy these houses, which are not massive. They have a lot of money, so they tend to decorate them all the blinking time. There is always decoration going on. So the kind of floors we've got are really quite expensive floors. They like a good bit of real oak floor, it's constant laminate. There's lots of wood. And the biggest risk to wood is getting it too wet. And when we were using mop and bucket, my staff were sloshing it all over the place. Whereas by using the flathead mops, the risk of doing that, there just isn't the risk. They don't get it too wet. And so a lot of our customers ask for very specific wood care use or very specific products. And what we can say is actually our system is designed to work with no chemicals. We do use chemicals most of the time because it makes it slightly better. But it's designed with no chemicals. So we don't have to use different chemicals for every customer. We can use none. And also isn't risking their wood. And most manufacturers recommend that you are not using a mop and bucket. And so that's our other reason for not using it.
Yeah, well, we have the same, to be fair. But when we talk to customers about this, and kind of the trick with using, especially when you're using a proper looped mop, is you just wring it out properly, and you have your feet either side of the bucket while you're doing it. That's part of our training. That's how we do it.
I think a lot of this, ultimately, it doesn't matter what product you use. Like I could do a brilliant clean with either mop, but it's exactly what you're saying. It's down to training. And I'm saying, okay, well, my staff, however much I'm training them, I'm going, they're not doing it properly. And I guess for me, even if my flathead mop didn't do as good a job as your looped mop, I would say, well, the risk of it going wrong with my flathead mop is much, much, much less. With the cannot go as wrong. So therefore, I would take my staff doing a slightly worse job. I don't believe they necessarily are, but if they were doing a slightly worse job, that would be my preference above running the risk of damaging the customer's floor. And so I think as business owners, sometimes it's not always about providing the best quality clean. And that sounds terrible, doesn't it?
I think that's the thing as a business owner, though, isn't it? You've got to balance the cost, you've got to balance effectiveness, you've got to balance safety, you've got to balance, is the potential for it being wrongly used or for accidents to happen. And I suppose you just got to make the decision all the way along, haven't you? And if you're listening to this and you kind of, you're either a solo cleaner or you've only got you've got plenty of time to change how you do things. But when you get to a certain size, you kind of go with what you've got that works. And I'm certainly not going to suddenly invest in 50 mops for my team. How many mop heads do you have to have? 3 for each clean?
We carry yes
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And so you're looking at, if you imagine you've got 20 teams going out a day, and each one has, and they could do up to 5 houses. That can be 15 per team. So you've got 20 teams. That's 300 a day. And then we have to have triple that. So we have enough in the washing machines. We can have an entire batch in the washing machine, and we've got some ready to be counted out and gone. So yeah, you'd be looking at not far off 1,000 mop heads, and each one you're spending, the kind of prices we're paying, £7 a mop head.
Yeah,
you're spending a lot of money.
Yeah, so if you're starting out or you're a relatively small business at the moment, you are going to have to make these decisions probably early doors, because by the time you get to 30 staff, you're not going to want to change whatever you've started.
But the thing is, you don't have to invest at that level. So if I was starting out and I was to try out a flathead mop, I'd buy one flathead mop and 3 heads, and I'd
Yeah.
probably buy what was available in the supermarket, what was the best deal, test it out, and then go.
Try them
And
out.
I've got to say, I love the e-cloth mops. We have tried lots of different ones. I keep going back to the e-cloth mop handles, but again, I think they're about £20 a mop handle. They're not cheap. And my staff still break them. So I probably only get 6 months use out of each mop handle. It costs a lot. And I think that's the other thing you've mentioned about cost. It's not just the cost of buying the products. I've said I expect 2 years out of a vacuum. I expect 6 months out of a mop handle. All my cloths will be taken out once a year. Gloves, they're just being disposed of. The cost is much more than just buying the products, because you are going to be replacing those. And sometimes I'd rather buy a more expensive product that will last longer than I would buy a slightly cheaper product, because it's worse value for money.
But there just is no guarantee, is there? It's, yeah.
But you,
It's
and then when
part of
cleaning business owners come to me and go, I'm charging £18 an hour, and I'm going, you have no idea what you are spending on products and vacuums and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that's been helpful. We're actually got a little bit of a giveaway, haven't we? So we're going to share the actual products in a quick list of the actual products that Louise and I use, so that if you kind of just want to get started with your 5 or 6 products, you've got a quick guide there.
And I would say, if you're going to go for it, the Jangro ones are really good because they come in 1 litre bottles, don't they? Which is a lot cheaper, and their minimum order is a lot less.
Yeah, there's usually lots of local Jangro suppliers, or if you're a DCBM member, then you've got a choice of our suppliers that will give you a discount, which is even better.
And last one, eco-friendly products as well. So almost every brand now produces eco-friendly products, but Lime Supply are amazing. So if you go on and look at Lime Supply, they supply lots of different brands, diversity. I don't think they supply Jangro, but maybe Evans and lots of other brands. And they will rate them on their environmental impact against lots of different factors. So they are really good. And if you are a DCBM member, you get a really good discount off them as well. So it's worth having a look at Lime Supply and the ranges they've got. But if you're new to this and you're just looking into getting these products, phone up the supplier, because they tell them what you want and they will give you advice, and they'll often give you some samples and testers to test out as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Louise.
Bye.